I'm Emma Rodriguez, 28 years old, and I'm sitting in my reliable Toyota Camry outside my parents' house in Phoenix, watching my sister Sophia pose for Instagram photos next to her fiancé Michael's pristine black Mercedes. She's wearing a designer dress that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent, her engagement ring catching the Arizona sun like a beacon of everything my family thinks represents success. What they don't know is that while they're about to spend the next 4 hours pitying my simple life and modest choices, I'm actually worth more than everyone at this Thanksgiving table will ever see in their combined lifetimes. The irony would be hilarious if it wasn't so exhausting. Through the living room window, I can see my mother Patricia adjusting the formal table setting for the third time, her perfectly styled hair and expensive jewelry reflecting her obsession with appearances. My father David is probably in his study, checking his phone and preparing his usual speech about responsibility and making something of yourself. They have no idea that their struggling daughter just returned from presenting groundbreaking medical technology to the European Union's health ministers, or that the modest apartment I call home was a deliberate choice, not a financial limitation. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The heat radiating from the desert pavement reminds me why I chose to stay in Phoenix after college, even though my family never quite understood that decision either. While Sophia moved to the trendy Scottsdale area to be closer to influencer events and networking opportunities, I deliberately chose a quiet apartment in Tempe near the Arizona State University campus. To them, it looked like I was stuck in a college mindset, unable to transition to real adult life. What they couldn't see was that I was building something extraordinary from that modest space, something that would revolutionize how doctors detect and treat cancer worldwide. My phone buzzes with a text from my business partner, Dr. Sarah Chen, who's spending her Thanksgiving reviewing the final patents for our latest breakthrough. 3 years ago, we developed an artificial intelligence system that can detect cancer cells 18 months earlier than traditional imaging methods. What started as my master's thesis project has become MedTech Solutions, a company that now employs over 350 people across 3 countries and holds 12 breakthrough patents in medical diagnostics. Our technology is being used in hospitals from Boston to Bangkok, saving lives every single day by catching diseases before they become terminal. But as I sit here preparing to walk into another family gathering where my achievements will be dismissed as, I can't help but reflect on how we got to this point. My family's obsession with visible success started about 10 years ago when my mother Patricia became one of the top real estate agents in Phoenix. Suddenly everything became about appearances, about what the neighbors thought, about making sure we looked successful by conventional standards. My father David, who manages a regional insurance office, embraced this new focus on status symbols with enthusiasm. They renovated their ranch-style house, added a pool, and joined the country club. Success to them became measurable by square footage, car payments, and social media followers. Sophia adapted to this new family culture like a fish to water. She was naturally beautiful, effortlessly social, and had an instinct for what would photograph well. While I was spending my teenage years taking apart computers and teaching myself programming languages, she was building her personal brand. By the time she graduated from Arizona State with a communications degree, she had already secured a position at a trendy marketing agency and was well on her way to becoming a local influencer. Her Instagram account, with its carefully curated lifestyle content, now boasts over 50,000 followers who eagerly consume her posts about fashion, fitness, and relationship goals. Meanwhile, I chose a different path entirely. While Sophia was networking at industry events and building her social media presence, I was deep in the computer science program at ASU, fascinated by the intersection of artificial intelligence and medical diagnostics. My professors recognized my potential early on, but my family saw my dedication to academics as social awkwardness. When I would try to explain my research projects over dinner, their eyes would glaze over. When I won the university's Innovation Award for my early cancer detection algorithm, they attended the ceremony but spent most of the time talking about Sophia's latest brand partnership deal. The disconnect became even more pronounced after graduation. While Sophia moved into a luxury apartment in Scottsdale and began dating men who could afford to take her to expensive restaurants and weekend getaways, I deliberately chose to stay in my simple two-bedroom apartment near campus. To my family, this looked like failure to launch, an inability to move beyond the college lifestyle. They couldn't understand that I was channeling every available resource into my research, that I was building something that could change the world, not just my personal net worth. What they also couldn't see was that I was already attracting attention from the medical technology community. Dr. Sarah Chen, a brilliant oncologist who had left her position at the Mayo Clinic to pursue innovation in early cancer detection, reached out to me after reading my published research. She had the medical expertise and industry connections that perfectly complemented my technical skills. Together, we refined my algorithm, secured initial funding, and began the long process of clinical trials and regulatory approvals. The early days of MedTech Solutions were exactly what my family expected from my quote-quote hobby. We worked out of a shared office space, survived on ramen noodles and coffee, and spent every waking hour refining our technology. When family gatherings would come around, I'd arrive looking tired and stressed, driving my aging Honda Civic, wearing clothes that clearly hadn't been a priority. My parents would exchange those looks that said everything about their disappointment, while Sophia would make gentle suggestions about maybe considering a more traditional career path. But while they were seeing failure, I was actually building something revolutionary. Our AI system was consistently outperforming traditional diagnostic methods in clinical trials. Major hospitals began reaching out, wanting to pilot our technology. Medical journals started publishing our research findings. The National Cancer Institute recognized our work as a breakthrough in early detection methodology. Yet at family dinners, when I would mention these developments, the conversation would inevitably shift to Sophia's latest influencer campaign or her relationship updates. The transformation of my modest startup into a major medical technology company happened gradually, then suddenly. First came the seed funding from a venture capital firm that specialized in healthcare innovation. Then the Series A round, led by investors who understood the life-saving potential of our technology. The clinical trials continued to exceed expectations, with our AI detecting early-stage cancers that traditional methods missed entirely. Hospitals began implementing our system, and the results were remarkable. Patient outcomes improved dramatically when cancers were caught months or even years earlier than previously possible. By the time Sophia announced her engagement to Michael Thompson 6 months ago, MedTech Solutions had completed its Series C funding round, valuing the company at $2.8 billion. My personal stake in the company had made me incredibly wealthy on paper, but more importantly, our technology was being used to save lives in hospitals across 3 continents. We had partnerships with medical institutions in Germany, Japan, and Australia. I was regularly invited to speak at international conferences about the future of medical diagnostics. Yet none of this penetrated my family's perception of me as the struggling daughter who needed guidance and support. When Sophia would post about her engagement to Michael, a successful corporate lawyer from a wealthy Phoenix family, my parents would share the posts with obvious pride. When I would mention traveling for business conferences, they would assume I was attending low-budget training sessions or networking events for struggling entrepreneurs. The gap between their perception and my reality had become so vast that I sometimes wondered if we were living in parallel universes. Michael Thompson represents everything my family values in a successful partner. He comes from old Phoenix money, his family having built their wealth through real estate development and legal services. He drives luxury cars, wears expensive suits, and has the kind of polished confidence that comes from never having to prove yourself. His law firm specializes in corporate aviation law, representing wealthy clients who own private jets and need legal counsel for their aircraft operations. To my parents, he's the perfect son-in-law, someone who can provide Sophia with the lifestyle she deserves and maintain the family's upward social mobility. What makes Michael interesting, though, is that he's not just a privileged pretty boy. He's genuinely intelligent, with a sharp legal mind and a curiosity about technology that sets him apart from the typical corporate lawyer. In the few conversations we've had at family gatherings, he's shown more interest in understanding what I actually do than my own parents have. He asks thoughtful questions about artificial intelligence and seems genuinely impressed by the potential applications in various industries. If circumstances were different, I think we might actually be friends. But today, as I prepare to walk into another Thanksgiving gathering where my achievements will be invisible and my choices will be questioned, I'm carrying a secret that feels heavier than usual. 3 days ago, I returned from Geneva, where I presented our latest research to the European Medical AI Summit. The response was overwhelming. 3 major European hospital systems immediately signed contracts to implement our technology. The European Union's Health Division requested a formal proposal for continent-wide adoption. The trip was so successful that we're now planning to open our first international office in Switzerland next year. I made this trip on MedTech Solutions Company aircraft, a Gulfstream G280 that we purchased 6 months ago, when it became clear that my travel schedule required more flexibility than commercial airlines could provide. The jet isn't a luxury for me. It's a practical necessity that allows me to maintain our partnerships across multiple time zones and attend critical meetings without the delays and limitations of commercial travel. But I know that if my family discovered this detail, they would see it as the ultimate symbol of wealth and success, missing entirely the purpose it serves in our mission to save lives. The irony is particularly sharp today because I know that Sophia and Michael have been planning this Thanksgiving gathering as an opportunity to share their wedding plans and bask in the family's approval. I've prepared myself for another afternoon of polite questions about my computer work and gentle suggestions about how I might improve my life situation. I've steeled myself for the inevitable comparisons between Sophia's obvious success and my apparent lack of direction. What I haven't prepared for is the possibility that the truth might finally emerge. As I turn off the car's engine and prepare to join my family for what I expect to be another exercise in patience and self-control, I can't help but wonder what would happen if they knew the whole truth. Would they suddenly see value in the work I've been doing? Would they understand that my choices weren't mistakes but deliberate decisions based on different priorities? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Or would they simply recalibrate their treatment of me based on my bank account rather than my character? The question haunts me as I walk toward the house, past Michael's Mercedes and Sophia's leased BMW, carrying the weight of secrets that have protected my family relationships, but also isolated me from genuine connection with the people who should know me best. Today, like every other gathering, I'll play the role of the daughter who's still figuring things out, while quietly knowing that I've already figured out something extraordinary. The familiar scent of my mother's traditional Thanksgiving feast greets me as I approach the front door, a mix of roasted turkey, homemade stuffing, and the tension that always accompanies family gatherings where everyone has expectations and everyone has something to prove. Through the window, I can see my Aunt Carmen and Uncle Roberto have already arrived, along with my younger cousin Diego, who's home from college for the holiday. The dining room table is set with my mother's finest china, the same formal place settings that have marked every significant family occasion for the past decade. I take one final deep breath of the desert air, feeling the weight of the performance I'm about to give, and ring the doorbell. Time to be Emma Rodriguez, the underachieving daughter. One more time. Emma, you finally made it! My mother, Patricia, exclaims as she opens the heavy wooden door, her perfectly manicured hands immediately reaching for the obligatory air kisses that have become standard greeting protocol in our family. She's wearing a burgundy dress that I recognize from her recent Instagram post, the one where she talked about investing in quality pieces that photograph well. Her blonde highlights are fresh from yesterday's salon appointment, and her makeup is flawless despite having spent the morning cooking. Everything about her appearance has been carefully curated for today's family photos that will inevitably end up on social media. I notice her eyes do that quick assessment they always do when she sees me, scanning my simple navy blue dress and comfortable flats with the practiced efficiency of someone who spent years evaluating appearances. The dress is actually made from high-quality materials and fits perfectly, but I know she's registering it as unremarkable, another example of my apparent inability to invest in myself properly. Her smile remains warm, but I catch the slight tightening around her eyes that signals her familiar disappointment in my presentation. Everyone's gathered in the living room, she continues, guiding me through the foyer with its gallery wall of family photos that chronicle our transformation from middle-class normalcy to aspirational success. The pictures tell the story of our family's evolution. Older photos show us in casual clothes at modest locations, while the newer ones feature professional styling and expensive backgrounds. I noticed that recent photos tend to feature Sophia prominently, while I appear less frequently as the years progress. The living room has been transformed into what looks like a magazine spread, with carefully arranged fall decorations and professional-grade lighting that my mother installed specifically for better photo opportunities. My father David stands near the rebuilt fireplace, wearing his newest suit and the confident smile of a man who's found his place in the world. He's holding a glass of wine from what I know is his carefully curated collection, each bottle chosen more for its impressive label than its actual taste. Uncle Roberto and Aunt Carmen are seated on the leather sectional that replaced our old comfortable couch 3 years ago. Roberto runs a successful construction company that's benefited enormously from Phoenix's building boom, and Carmen owns 2 popular Mexican restaurants in the valley. They've always been the practical success stories in our extended family, building wealth through hard work and smart business decisions rather than social media presence or professional networking. My cousin Diego jumps up from his position near the entertainment center, where he's been showing off his latest photography equipment to whoever will listen. At 22, he's still young enough to be impressed by expensive gadgets and status symbols, but old enough to understand the family dynamics that play out at these gatherings. He's always been kind to me, treating me more like a cool older cousin than the family disappointment that others seem to perceive. But it's Sophia who commands the room's attention, as she always does. She's positioned perfectly in the center of the seating area, her designer dress spread artfully around her, her engagement ring catching the light with every gesture. Beside her sits Michael Thompson, and I have to admit that they make a striking couple. He's tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of classical good looks that photograph well, wearing a perfectly tailored suit that probably costs more than most people's monthly salary. "Emma, come meet my fiancé properly," Sophia announces, standing gracefully and extending her hand toward Michael with the practiced ease of someone who's accustomed to being the center of attention. We've talked briefly at previous gatherings, but today feels different, more formal, as if she's presenting him to the family as her final achievement. Michael rises and extends his hand toward me, his handshake firm but not overpowering. "It's wonderful to finally have a chance to chat properly, Emma," he says, and I'm struck by the genuine warmth in his voice. "Sophia has told me so much about your work in technology. I find that field absolutely fascinating, especially with all the innovations happening in artificial intelligence." For a moment I'm caught off guard by his direct interest. Most of Sophia's previous boyfriends had treated me with polite indifference, the kind of superficial courtesy extended to family members who don't really matter in their social calculations. But Michael seems genuinely curious, leaning forward slightly as if he's actually interested in my response. Before I can answer, my father steps forward with his characteristic booming voice. "Emma's always been our little tech genius," he says with the kind of patronizing pride that makes my skin crawl. "Always tinkering with computers, even as a kid. We used to joke that she spoke to machines better than people. The comment stings because it contains just enough truth to feel cruel. I did spend my childhood fascinated by how things worked, taking apart electronics and rebuilding them, losing myself in programming tutorials while other kids were playing outside. But my father's characterization makes it sound like antisocial behavior rather than intellectual curiosity. What exactly do you do in the tech field?" Michael asks, ignoring my father's interruption and focusing directly on me. I can tell from his tone that he's asking a real question, not making conversation. "I work in medical technology," I begin, but Sophia immediately jumps in with her own interpretation. "She's doing something with computers and healthcare," Sophia explains, with the kind of simplified summary that makes complex work sound trivial. "It's like medical software or something, very technical and complicated." I notice Michael's eyebrows raise slightly at this description, but before he can ask follow-up questions, my mother announces that dinner is ready, and we should all move to the dining room. The moment passes, and I find myself once again having my work explained by someone who doesn't understand it. The dining room has been set up like a formal restaurant, with my mother's best china and crystal stemware creating an elegant tablescape that will definitely be photographed multiple times throughout the meal. The centerpiece is an elaborate arrangement of fall flowers that probably cost more than most families spend on their entire Thanksgiving dinner. Each place setting includes multiple forks, cloth napkins, and small menu cards that my mother has handwritten in calligraphy. As we take our seats, I notice the subtle hierarchy in the seating arrangement. Sophia and Michael are positioned directly across from my parents, in the spots traditionally reserved for the guests of honor. I'm seated between Diego and Uncle Roberto, in what feels like the extended family section, slightly removed from the main conversation flow. My mother begins serving the first course, a butternut squash soup that she's been perfecting for weeks, according to her recent social media posts. The presentation is restaurant quality, with perfectly swirled cream and strategically placed garnishes that catch the light beautifully. "This is incredible, Mrs. Rodriguez," Michael says after his first taste. "Did you train professionally?" My mother beams with pride at the compliment. "Oh, thank you, Michael. I've been taking cooking classes at the Culinary Institute. It's important to me that our family gatherings feel special." The conversation flows easily around topics that showcase our family's upward mobility. My parents discuss their recent kitchen renovation, Sophia shares updates about her growing social media following, and Michael talks about his law firm's expansion into new areas of corporate aviation law. Speaking of aviation, Michael mentions casually, "Our firm has been incredibly busy lately. The private jet industry has exploded in Phoenix. We're handling more aircraft purchases and leasing agreements than ever before." I feel a small flutter of anxiety at the mention of private jets, but I tell myself there's no reason to worry. The connection between Michael's legal work and my business travel is so remote that it's practically non-existent. "That must be fascinating work," Aunt Carmen comments. "I can't imagine having enough money to own a private airplane. It's really about efficiency for most of our clients," Michael explains. When you're running a business that operates internationally, commercial airline schedules can be limiting. Time is money, especially in high-stakes industries like medical technology and pharmaceutical development. Again, I feel that small prickle of unease, but I push it aside. Michael is speaking in general terms about industries he's familiar with through his legal work. There's no reason to think he has specific knowledge about my company or my travel arrangements. The conversation continues to flow around me, while I focus on my soup, listening to the familiar pattern of family dynamics. Sophia shares an anecdote about a recent brand partnership that went viral, generating the kind of engagement numbers that my parents treat as objective measures of success. Michael contributes stories about high-profile clients and complex legal cases that demonstrate his professional competence. When the topic turns to holiday travel plans, Sophia mentions that she and Michael are spending Christmas in Aspen with his family, staying at their ski lodge, and attending various social events that sound like something out of a luxury lifestyle magazine. "What about you, Emma?" Diego asks, including me in the conversation with the casual kindness that makes him my favorite family member. "Any fun travel plans for the holidays?" "I'm not sure yet," I answer carefully. "Work has been pretty demanding lately. I might take a quiet vacation somewhere warm." "Still doing the computer thing?" my father asks with the kind of dismissive tone that makes my work sound like a hobby rather than a profession. "Yes, Dad," I reply, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. "Still working in medical technology." "You know, Emma," Michael says thoughtfully, "I've been following developments in medical AI pretty closely. My firm represents several companies in that space. It's incredible what's happening with diagnostic technology these days." For a moment, I feel a spark of hope that someone in my family might finally understand what I'm working on. But before I can respond, Sophia laughs and waves her hand dismissively. "Oh, Michael, you're so sweet to pretend to be interested in Emma's work, but you don't need to humor her. We all know it's not exactly groundbreaking stuff." The comment hits me like a physical blow. The casual cruelty of having my life's work dismissed as something that requires humoring rather than genuine interest feels worse than the usual neglect. Michael's expression shifts slightly, and I catch a glimpse of something that might be surprise or even disapproval at Sophia's dismissiveness. But the moment passes quickly as my mother begins clearing the soup bowls and preparing to serve the main course. The turkey arrives at the table like a centerpiece in a food magazine, perfectly browned and garnished with fresh herbs that my mother has arranged with artistic precision. The accompanying dishes are equally Instagram-worthy. Creamy mashed potatoes piped into elegant swirls, green bean casserole topped with perfectly crispy onions, and stuffing that's been formed into individual portions for better presentation. As we begin the main course, the conversation shifts to Sophia and Michael's wedding plans. They've booked a venue in Scottsdale that specializes in luxury events, with a guest list that reads like a who's who of Phoenix's social elite. The details they share about flowers, catering, and entertainment suggest a budget that exceeds what most people spend on a house. "We're thinking of a destination honeymoon," Sophia explains, her ring catching the light as she gestures enthusiastically. "Maybe the Maldives or Bora Bora, somewhere exotic and romantic that will photograph beautifully." My parents hang on every word, asking questions about dress designers and catering menus with the kind of engaged interest they've never shown in my work. The contrast is stark and painful, highlighting once again how different our definitions of achievement and success have become. "What about you, Emma?" Aunt Carmen asks kindly. "Are you seeing anyone special?" The question is well-intentioned, but it highlights another area where I'm perceived as falling short of family expectations. While Sophia is planning her dream wedding, I'm still single, still focused on work, still not meeting the traditional milestones that my family considers important. "I'm pretty focused on work right now," I answer diplomatically. "There's a lot happening with my company that requires my full attention." "You work too much," my mother says with the kind of concerned tone that makes personal dedication sound like a character flaw. "You need to make time for a social life, for meeting people. All work and no play, as they say." I bite back the response that my work is literally saving lives, that the long hours and complete dedication are producing results that matter beyond personal fulfillment. Instead, I nod politely and take another bite of turkey. The meal continues with more discussion of Sophia's wedding plans, Michael's professional achievements, and various family members' business successes. I listen to stories about profitable real estate deals, successful restaurant expansions, and social media milestones that generate actual income. When the conversation turns to Black Friday shopping plans and holiday spending, I realize how differently I approach money compared to the rest of my family. While they're excited about buying luxury items and maintaining their lifestyle upgrades, I'm thinking about the charitable donations I've scheduled for the end of the year and the research grants I'm planning to fund through my foundation. The disconnect feels more pronounced than usual today, perhaps because I'm fresh from my European trip, where I was treated as a respected expert in my field. 3 days ago, I was presenting breakthrough research to medical professionals who understood the significance of what we've achieved. Today, I'm back to being the family member who needs gentle guidance and concerned intervention. As my mother serves dessert, a pumpkin pie that looks like it belongs in a gourmet magazine, I find myself calculating how many hours it will be before I can politely excuse myself and return to my quiet apartment. The performance is exhausting, and I'm running out of energy to maintain the facade of being grateful for their concern and advice. But then Michael does something unexpected. As the conversation lulls slightly, he turns to me with genuine curiosity in his eyes. "Emma, I have to ask about something that's been bothering me," he says, his tone serious but not confrontational. "I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but I was reviewing some flight manifests for work earlier this week, and I noticed something interesting." My heart stops. The room suddenly feels smaller, the air thicker. I can feel my pulse quickening as I try to maintain a neutral expression. "What kind of something?" Sophia asks, clearly curious about anything that might involve her quiet sister. Michael hesitates for a moment, as if he's unsure whether to continue. "Well, I saw a flight manifest from Geneva to Phoenix Sky Harbor on Tuesday. The aircraft was registered to a company called MedTech Solutions. The silence that follows is absolute. I can hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking, the gentle hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Emma," Michael continues, his voice gentle but persistent, "that wouldn't happen to be your company, would it?" The question hangs in the air like smoke from a fire that's about to consume everything. I can feel every pair of eyes at the table turning toward me, waiting for an explanation that I'm not prepared to give. My mouth feels dry, and I reach for my water glass with what I hope appears to be casual nonchalance, buying myself a few precious seconds to think. "Medtech solutions?" my mother repeats, her voice carrying that particular tone of confusion mixed with concern that I've heard so many times before. "Emma, what is he talking about?" I take a careful sip of water, acutely aware that my next words will either maintain the carefully constructed separation between my two worlds, or blow it apart completely. The weight of 3 years of secrecy presses down on me, along with the sudden realization that my family is about to discover everything I've worked so hard to keep private. "It's my company," I say quietly, the words feeling strange in my mouth. I've never spoken them aloud in this house, in front of these people who think they know everything about my life. "Your company." Sophia's voice rises with what sounds like genuine surprise, mixed with something that might be offense. "What do you mean, your company?" "I mean, I founded it 3 years ago," I continue, feeling like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump without knowing if there's water below. "We develop artificial intelligence systems for medical diagnostics." The silence that follows is different from the previous pause. This one feels charged, electric, as if the very air in the room is processing this information and finding it difficult to compute. My father sets down his wine glass with deliberate precision, the soft clink against the table seeming unnaturally loud. "Emma," my mother says slowly, as if she's speaking to someone who might not understand simple concepts, "when you say you founded a company, what exactly do you mean?" The question reveals so much about their perception of me that it's almost funny. They literally cannot conceive of me as someone capable of founding anything significant. In their minds, I'm still the struggling daughter who needs help with basic life decisions. I mean, I identified a problem in medical diagnostics, developed a solution using artificial intelligence, secured funding, built a team, and created a company that now operates internationally, I explain, hearing my own voice become stronger with each word. "But honey," my father interjects, his tone patronizing in the way that makes me want to scream, "starting a little tech company isn't the same as running a real business. Most of those startups fail within the first year." "We're past the startup phase, Dad," I say, trying to keep my voice level. "We have over 350 employees across 3 countries, and our technology is being used in hospitals worldwide." Sophia lets out a short laugh that sounds more like a bark. "Emma, come on. You live in that tiny apartment and drive a car that's practically falling apart. If you were running some successful company, don't you think your lifestyle would reflect that?" The comment hits exactly where it's supposed to hurt, highlighting the cognitive dissonance that my family cannot resolve. They cannot reconcile their perception of my financial status with the possibility that I might have chosen my lifestyle deliberately. "Some people don't measure success by their car payments," I reply, and I can hear the edge creeping into my voice despite my attempts to stay calm. "That's what people say when they can't afford nice things," Sophia shoots back, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. "It's okay to admit you're struggling, Emma. We're family. We want to help." The condescension in her voice is breathtaking. She's managed to turn my explanation of business success into evidence of personal failure, twisting the narrative to maintain her position as the family's achievement story. Michael has been watching this exchange with growing discomfort, his eyes moving between me and Sophia as if he's witnessing something that doesn't quite make sense. Finally, he speaks up. "Emma, when you say your company operates internationally, what exactly does that mean?" I hesitate, knowing that my answer will either convince them I'm delusional or force me to reveal the full scope of what I've built. There's no middle ground anymore, no way to give a modest response that will satisfy their curiosity without fundamentally changing how they see me. "We have partnerships with medical institutions in 15 countries, I say carefully. Our AI system is being used to detect cancers earlier than traditional methods, and we're working on expanding into other diagnostic areas." "That sounds impressive," Michael says, and I can tell he's genuinely trying to understand. "What kind of funding are we talking about for something like that?" The question is direct and specific, the kind that requires a numerical answer that will either validate or destroy my credibility. I can feel the entire table leaning forward slightly, as if they're all holding their breath. "We completed our Series C funding round 6 months ago," I answer, knowing that the number I'm about to reveal will change everything. "The company was valued at $2.8 billion. The silence that follows is so complete that I can hear the neighbor's dog barking 3 houses away. My mother's fork, which she was using to cut her pie, freezes halfway to her mouth. My father's wine glass stops moving toward his lips. Sophia's expression cycles through several emotions so quickly that it's like watching a slideshow of human reactions. Billion? Diego finally whispers, his voice barely audible. With a B? I nod, feeling suddenly exhausted by the weight of the secret I've carried for so long. Yes, with a B. That's impossible, Sophia says flatly, her voice carrying an authority that suggests she's stating an obvious fact rather than expressing an opinion. You're lying. The accusation stings, but I realize I expected it. The truth is so far outside their framework for understanding me that denial is their most logical response. I'm not lying, I say quietly. I can show you the documentation if you want proof. Michael is staring at me with an expression I can't quite read. As someone who works in corporate law, he would understand the significance of a $2.8 billion valuation in ways that the rest of my family might not. Emma, he says slowly, if what you're saying is true, then you're not just successful, you're extraordinarily wealthy. The word wealthy hangs in the air like a foreign concept. My family has never applied that term to me, never considered it as a possibility. They've worried about my financial security, made suggestions about my spending habits, and offered to help with major expenses, all while I've been quietly building a fortune that dwarfs their combined assets. I don't really think about it in those terms, I answer honestly. The company's value is largely theoretical until there's an exit event, and most of my focus is on the medical impact of what we're doing. But you personally own a significant portion of this company. Michael presses, his legal mind clearly working through the implications. About 30%, I admit, knowing that this number will allow them to calculate my personal net worth, and realizing that there's no point in being modest anymore. I watch my father's eyes as he does the mental math, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to something that might be awe. 30% of $2.8 billion is more money than he's ever contemplated in personal terms. $840 million, he says aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. Roughly, I confirm, though I add quickly, that paper wealth and liquid assets are very different things. But Emma, my mother says, her voice carrying a note of something like accusation, why didn't you tell us? We're your family. We should have known about this. The question reveals the fundamental disconnect between us. They're upset that I didn't share financial information that they feel entitled to know, but they've never shown genuine interest in understanding my work or my choices. Would it have changed anything? I ask, genuinely curious about their answer. Would you have treated me differently if you'd known about the money? Of course not, Sophia says immediately, but her tone suggests she's not entirely convinced by her own answer. We would have been proud of you. You've never been proud of my work, I point out. You've dismissed it as computer stuff and suggested I need to find a real career. The only thing that would have changed is your perception of my bank account. That's not fair, my father protests, but there's a weakness in his voice that suggests he knows I'm right. Michael has been watching this family dynamic play out with the careful attention of someone who's trying to understand a complex situation. Finally, he speaks up again. Emma, I have to ask about something else. The flight manifest I saw showed a Gulfstream G280 registered to MedTech Solutions. That's a very expensive aircraft. I feel my heart rate spike again. The private jet is perhaps the most visible symbol of wealth that my family could understand. The kind of luxury that would be impossible to explain away as practical or modest. Yes, I confirm, knowing that denial would be pointless since he's already seen the documentation. The company owns the aircraft. You have a private jet? Sophia's voice reaches a pitch that suggests she's genuinely struggling to process this information. The company has a private jet, I correct, though I know the distinction is largely meaningless. We operate across multiple time zones and need flexibility that commercial airlines can't provide. But you personally use this jet? Michael asks, his tone suggesting he already knows the answer. When necessary for business, I confirm. I was in Geneva earlier this week for a medical conference, and I'll be traveling to London next month for meetings with potential partners. The room falls silent again as everyone processes this information. A private jet represents a level of wealth that transcends anything they've previously associated with me. It's not just about having money. It's about having so much money that you can casually spend millions on transportation convenience. Geneva, my mother repeats slowly. You were in Geneva this week? I nod, realizing that I'm now committed to full disclosure. I was presenting our latest research to the European Medical AI Summit. Several hospital systems are interested in implementing our technology. And you flew there on your own private jet, Diego says, his voice carrying a mixture of amazement and something that might be respect. The company jet, I clarify again, though I'm beginning to realize that the distinction doesn't matter to them. They're focused on the fact that I have access to a level of luxury that they've never imagined. Sophia has been uncharacteristically quiet during this exchange, her face cycling through emotions that I can't quite read. Finally, she speaks up. So while I've been working my ass off to build my influencer brand and trying to establish myself in marketing, you've been secretly running a billion-dollar company? The hurt in her voice is genuine, and I realize that this revelation isn't just about money or success. It's about the fundamental relationship between sisters, about trust and honesty, and the roles we've played in each other's lives. I wasn't keeping it secret to hurt you, I say softly. I was keeping it private because I wanted to build something meaningful without the pressure of family expectations or the complications that come with sudden wealth. But we could have supported you, my mother insists, though her tone suggests she's not entirely sure what that support would have looked like. You never supported the work itself, I point out. You supported the idea that I should abandon it for something more conventional. That's because we didn't understand, my father says, and for the first time in this conversation he sounds genuinely contrite. We thought you were struggling. I was struggling, I admit. The early days were incredibly difficult. But I was struggling towards something, not just struggling in general. Michael leans forward, his expression serious. Emma, I have to ask this directly. Are you telling us that you've been living modestly by choice, not by necessity? The question gets to the heart of everything. They've spent years pitying my lifestyle choices, offering help and advice, treating me like someone who needed rescue. The possibility that I've been making deliberate decisions rather than being forced into them by circumstances is almost too much for them to process. Yes, I answer simply. I live in my apartment because I like it. I drive my car because it's reliable and practical. I spend my money on things that matter to me, like research funding and charitable donations. How much money do you actually have? Sophia asks bluntly. Not the company value, but actually available to you personally? The question is crude and direct, but I understand why she's asking. They need concrete numbers to make sense of this revelation. I have more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life, I answered diplomatically. The exact amount isn't really important. But it's tens of millions? My father presses. I nod reluctantly, knowing that this admission will fundamentally change how they see me. And you've been letting us worry about your finances, offer to help with expenses, suggest ways you could improve your situation? My mother asks, her voice carrying a note of something that might be anger. I never asked for your help, I point out. I never complained about my finances or suggested I was struggling. But you let us believe it, Sophia says, and now her voice definitely carries accusation. You let us think you were the failure while I was the success story. The word failure hits like a physical blow. This is exactly what I feared would happen, that the revelation of my financial success would somehow diminish her achievements or make her feel like she'd been living a lie. You're not a failure, Sophia, I say earnestly. You've built something impressive with your social media presence and your marketing career. Different doesn't mean less valuable. But you've been judging us this whole time, haven't you? She continues, her anger building. Sitting there while we talked about our accomplishments, probably thinking we were all small time compared to your billion-dollar empire. The accusation stings because it contains a grain of truth. I have felt frustrated by our family's focus on surface-level achievements while my work went unrecognized. But I've never felt superior to them, just different. I've never judged your success, I say carefully. I've only wanted my own work to be valued for what it is. Michael has been watching this exchange with growing concern, clearly recognizing that this conversation is heading toward permanently damaged relationships if it continues on its current trajectory. Maybe we should all take a step back, he suggests diplomatically. This is a lot of information to process, and emotions are running high. But Sophia isn't ready to step back. The anger and hurt in her voice are building to a crescendo that suggests she has more to say. "Do you know what the worst part is?" she asks, her voice shaking slightly. "It's not that you're successful, it's that you've been letting us patronize you for years. Every time Mom worried about your finances, every time Dad offered career advice, every time I tried to help you network or improve your situation, you just sat there and let us make fools of ourselves. The accusation is harsh, but not entirely unfair. I have allowed them to maintain their misconceptions about my situation, partly out of a desire for privacy, and partly because correcting them would have required explanations I wasn't ready to give. I never wanted to make fools of anyone," I say quietly. "I just wanted to be valued for who I am, not what I own." "But who you are includes what you've accomplished," Michael points out, his tone thoughtful rather than accusatory. "Your work is saving lives, Emma. That's extraordinary, and your family deserves to know about it." The conversation has reached a point where the fundamental dynamics of our relationships are being questioned and potentially restructured. Nothing will ever be the same between us, regardless of how this evening ends. Uncle Roberto, who has been quietly observing this entire exchange, finally speaks up. "Emma, I have to ask about something practical. If you're running a company this size, how do you manage it while living such a simple life?" It's a good question, one that gets to the heart of how I've managed to keep these two worlds separate. The company has offices in Phoenix, but also in Boston, London, and Tokyo. I have an exceptional team of executives who handle day-to-day operations while I focus on research and development and strategic partnerships. I work from home most days, I explain. My apartment has a dedicated office space with all the technology I need. When I travel for business, it's usually for specific meetings or conferences that require my personal attention. "And your employees know about your lifestyle?" Aunt Carmen asks, seeming genuinely curious rather than judgmental. "They know I prefer to work remotely, and that I'm not interested in traditional executive perks," I answer. "But they also see the results of my work and the success of the company. That's what matters in a professional context." The conversation continues with more questions about the practical aspects of running a major corporation while maintaining personal privacy. My family seems to be struggling with the disconnect between their perception of successful executives and my actual lifestyle choices. But underlying all these practical questions is the emotional reality that our family dynamic has been fundamentally altered. They're learning that their assumptions about me have been wrong for years, and that knowledge is forcing them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about success, family, and honest communication. As the evening wears on, I realize that this revelation is just the beginning of a much larger conversation about who we are as a family and how we relate to each other. The carefully constructed roles we've all played are crumbling, and we'll need to figure out how to build something new in their place. The revelation settles over our family like dust after an explosion, leaving everyone struggling to see clearly through the changed landscape of our relationships. Sophia pushes back from the table abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor with a sound that cuts through the heavy silence. Her perfectly composed facade has cracked, revealing raw emotions that she's clearly not equipped to handle gracefully. "You know what," she says, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and something that sounds dangerously close to betrayal. "I need some air. This is too much to process right now." Before anyone can respond, she's walking quickly toward the sliding glass doors that lead to our parents' backyard, her heels clicking sharply against the tile. Michael starts to follow her, but she holds up a hand that clearly says she wants to be alone. Through the glass, we can see her pacing back and forth beside the pool, her silhouette moving restlessly in the early evening light. The dining room feels different without Sophia's commanding presence. Smaller somehow, as if her departure has allowed the weight of what's been revealed to settle more heavily on those who remain. My parents sit in stunned silence, my father still gripping his wineglass as if it might anchor him to a reality that makes sense, my mother's eyes moving between me and the empty chair where Sophia had been sitting. "Emma," my father finally says, his voice carrying a tone I've never heard before, something between bewilderment and what might be respect. I don't even know where to begin processing this. His admission is both honest and heartbreaking. For the first time in years, he's acknowledging that he doesn't understand something about my life, rather than simply dismissing it as unimportant or misguided. I know it's a lot to take in, I respond carefully, acutely aware that every word I speak now will shape how our family moves forward from this moment. I never intended for it to come out this way. But why keep it secret at all? My mother asks, her voice carrying genuine hurt rather than anger. We're your family, Emma. We should have been celebrating your success, not worrying about your future. The question gets to the heart of everything I've struggled with for the past 3 years. How do you explain to people who measure success by visible markers that you deliberately chose invisibility? How do you tell your family that you didn't trust them to value your work for its own merit? Because I needed to know that you cared about me as a person, not as a bank account, I answer as honestly as I can. I needed to know that my ideas and my work mattered to you, regardless of how much money they generated. My mother's face crumples slightly, as if she's beginning to understand the implications of what I'm saying. We do care about you as a person, she insists, but her voice lacks conviction. Do you? I ask gently, not trying to be cruel but needing her to really consider the question. When was the last time you asked me about my work because you were genuinely interested, not because you were worried about my financial stability? The silence that follows is answer enough. Uncle Roberto shifts uncomfortably in his seat, while Aunt Carmen reaches over to squeeze my hand in a gesture of support that surprises me with its warmth. You have to understand, my father says, his tone becoming defensive. We were concerned because we love you. We wanted to see you settled and secure. Secure according to whose definition, I ask. I've been secure for years, Dad. I've been building something meaningful, something that's literally saving lives every day. But because it didn't look like your idea of success, you assumed I was failing. Michael, who has been watching Sophia through the glass doors while listening to our conversation, turns back to the table with an expression that suggests he's beginning to understand the family dynamics he's about to marry into. If I may, he says carefully, I think what Emma's trying to say is that your concern, while well-intentioned, was based on assumptions rather than actual knowledge of her situation. Exactly, I confirm, grateful for his diplomatic translation. You saw my apartment and my car and concluded that I needed help, without ever asking if I was happy with my choices or proud of my work. But how could we know? My mother asks, her voice rising slightly. You never told us about any of this success. You let us believe you were struggling. I never said I was struggling, I point out. You assumed I was struggling because my lifestyle didn't match your expectations for someone my age with my education. Diego, who has been uncharacteristically quiet throughout this entire exchange, finally speaks up. Emma, I have to say, this is kind of awesome. I mean, not the family drama part, but the fact that you built something this amazing. Can you tell us more about what your company actually does? His question is refreshingly direct and genuinely curious, free from the emotional baggage that's been weighing down the rest of our conversation. For the first time since this revelation began, I feel a spark of hope that someone in my family might actually want to understand my work for its own sake. We've developed artificial intelligence that can analyze medical imaging to detect diseases much earlier than traditional methods, I explain, feeling more comfortable talking about the technical aspects than the personal ones. Our system can spot cancer cells up to 18 months before they would typically be discovered, which dramatically improves patient outcomes. That's incredible, Diego says, his eyes lighting up with genuine interest. How's the AI actually learn to recognize these patterns? I spend the next several minutes explaining the machine learning processes we use, the vast databases of medical images we've analyzed, and the rigorous testing procedures required for medical technology. Diego asks thoughtful questions that demonstrate he's actually listening and trying to understand, rather than simply being polite. Watching his engagement, I realize how starved I've been for this kind of intellectual curiosity from my family. For 3 years, I've been surrounded by colleagues and partners who appreciate the complexity and importance of our work. But at home, I've been treated like someone whose career was too trivial to deserve serious attention. Michael rejoins the conversation with questions about the regulatory challenges involved in bringing medical AI to market. And I find myself explaining the FDA approval process, the international certification requirements, and the clinical trials that validate our technology's effectiveness. "This is why you travel so much for work," my mother says suddenly, as if pieces of a puzzle are finally clicking into place. "You're not just attending conferences, you're presenting your research and negotiating partnerships." "Exactly," I confirm. "Last week in Geneva, I was working with European health officials on implementing our technology in their public health systems. Next month in London, I'll be meeting with potential partners who want to expand our diagnostic capabilities into other areas." "And you fly to these meetings on your company's private jet," my father adds, his tone suggesting he's still struggling to reconcile this reality with his mental image of me. "When necessary," I confirm. Commercial airline schedules don't always align with the timing of critical business meetings, especially when you're coordinating across multiple time zones. The conversation is interrupted by Sophia's return from the backyard. Her cheeks are flushed from the cool evening air, and her perfect makeup shows signs of the tears she's clearly been shedding. She slides back into her chair with a composure that's obviously forced, her jaw set in a way that suggests she's made some decisions during her time outside. "I've been thinking," she announces, her voice carefully controlled, "and I realize that I owe Emma an apology." The unexpected statement catches everyone off guard. Sophia has never been quick to apologize, particularly not in situations where she feels she's been deceived or made to look foolish. "I'm sorry for dismissing your work and calling it unimportant," she continues, her eyes fixed on the table rather than on me. "That was unfair and hurtful, and I shouldn't have said it." The apology is stilted and clearly difficult for her, but it feels genuine in its awkwardness. Sophia has always struggled with admitting when she's wrong, so this represents a significant effort on her part. "Thank you," I respond simply, not wanting to make the moment more complicated than it needs to be. "But I also need to say that I'm hurt and confused about why you felt you couldn't trust us with this information," she adds, her voice gaining strength. "I understand wanting privacy, but 3 years of letting us worry about you and offer help you didn't need feels like deception." Her point is valid, and I recognize that my desire for privacy has had unintended consequences for our family relationships. They've spent years operating under false assumptions about my situation, making decisions and taking actions based on information that was incomplete. "You're right," I admit. "I could have handled this better. I could have been more direct about being happy with my choices, even without revealing the financial details." "But why reveal it now?" my father asks. "What changed?" I look toward Michael, who's been watching this family reconciliation with careful attention. The answer is sitting right at this table, I realize. Michael's work with aviation law means he has access to information that made keeping this secret impossible, I explain. Once he connected my name with the flight manifests, the truth was going to come out whether I wanted it to or not. Michael looks slightly uncomfortable at being identified as the catalyst for this family upheaval, but he nods in acknowledgement. I should mention that client confidentiality prevents me from discussing the specific details of what I see in my work, he says carefully. But when I recognized Emma's company name on a flight manifest, I felt it was appropriate to ask about it directly. His diplomatic explanation helps diffuse any potential resentment about his role in exposing my secret, while also demonstrating the professional discretion that makes him good at his job. "So what happens now?" Aunt Carmen asks, voicing the question that everyone seems to be thinking. "How do we move forward as a family with this new information?" It's a practical question that cuts through the emotional complexity of the situation. We can't unknow what we now know, and we can't pretend that our family dynamics haven't been fundamentally altered by these revelations. I think we start by acknowledging that we all have some adjusting to do, I suggest. You need time to process this information and reconsider your assumptions about my life. I need to think about how to be more open about my work and my choices without feeling like I'm being judged by standards that don't reflect my values. And I need to figure out how to support my sister's success instead of competing with it, Sophia adds, her voice carrying a note of genuine vulnerability that I haven't heard from her in years. The admission is perhaps the most honest thing she's said all evening, acknowledging the competitive dynamic that has existed between us for so long. Her recognition that my success doesn't diminish her own achievements suggests a maturity that gives me hope for our future relationship. The competition was never real, Sophia, I tell her earnestly. Your social media work, your marketing career, your ability to connect with people, those are all valuable skills that I don't have. We're successful in different ways, and that should be something to celebrate rather than a source of conflict. My mother, who has been quietly listening to this exchange, suddenly speaks up with tears in her eyes. I'm so proud of you, Emma, she says, her voice thick with emotion. I'm proud of what you've built and what you're accomplishing. I'm sorry it took learning about the money for me to really understand how incredible your work is. Her apology hits deeper than I expected, striking at years of feeling undervalued and misunderstood. For the first time in this entire conversation, I feel tears threatening to spill over. I appreciate that, Mom, I managed to say. I just want you to understand that the work itself is what matters to me. Not the financial success that came with it. But the financial success is part of it, my father points out, his businessman's mind clearly still processing the numbers. Emma, what you've built isn't just medically important, it's economically significant. You've created jobs, attracted investment, and contributed to economic growth. That matters too. His perspective surprises me with its thoughtfulness. While I've been focused on the medical impact of our technology, he's considering the broader economic implications of building a successful company. You're right, I acknowledge. I sometimes forget that creating good jobs and generating economic activity are also forms of positive impact. The conversation gradually shifts from emotional confrontation to practical discussion about what this revelation means for our family going forward. We talk about how to handle the information with extended family and friends, about the security considerations that come with significant wealth, and about the charitable work that I've been doing quietly for the past 2 years. Michael proves to be particularly helpful in this discussion, his legal background providing insights into privacy protection and wealth management that none of us had considered. His calm, practical approach to these complex issues demonstrates why Sophia was attracted to him, and gives me confidence that he'll be a stabilizing influence in our family. As the evening progresses, I realize that this forced revelation might actually improve our family relationships in the long run. For the first time in years, we're having honest conversations about our values, our definitions of success, and our expectations for each other. Sophia seems to be processing the information with increasing acceptance, asking thoughtful questions about the company's mission, and expressing genuine interest in the medical breakthroughs we've achieved. Her competitive instincts are gradually being replaced by something that might be sisterly pride. My parents are struggling more with the adjustment, particularly with the realization that their years of concern and advice were based on false premises. But they're making an effort to understand my perspective and to acknowledge that their assumptions were wrong. By the time we begin clearing the dinner dishes, the atmosphere in the house has shifted from shocked tension to tentative optimism. We're not the same family we were when we sat down to dinner, but we might be on our way to becoming a better one. The evening ends with hugs that feel more genuine than they have in years, and promises to continue these conversations in the days and weeks to come. Sophia and Michael linger after the others have said their goodbyes, and she surprises me by asking if I'd be willing to have lunch with her later in the week. I'd like to understand more about what you're doing, she says, her voice carrying none of the competitive edge that usually characterizes our interactions. And I'd like to talk about how we can support each other better going forward. The request feels like an olive branch, an opportunity to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of honesty rather than assumptions and misconceptions. As I drive home to my modest apartment in my reliable Toyota, I reflect on how dramatically this day has changed the trajectory of my family relationships. The secret that I've carried for 3 years is finally out, and while the revelation was more dramatic and emotionally charged than I would have preferred, it might ultimately lead to the authentic connections I've been craving. For the first time in years, I feel like my family might actually see me for who I am, rather than who they assumed I was. And that possibility, more valuable than any financial success, gives me hope for what we might build together in the future. 2 weeks after that life-changing Thanksgiving dinner, I'm sitting in my favorite coffee shop in Tempe, watching Sophia navigate through the crowded space with an expression of curious determination on her face. She's never been to this particular cafe before, having always preferred the trendy spots in Scottsdale that photograph better for her social media content. But when she suggested we meet for the lunch conversation we'd promised each other, I chose this place deliberately, wanting to share a part of my world that she's never seen. The cafe represents everything about my lifestyle that my family has struggled to understand. It's unpretentious, comfortable, and filled with Arizona State University students, local entrepreneurs, and freelancers who value substance over style. The mismatched furniture tells stories of countless conversations about dreams and innovations, and the walls are covered with local artwork rather than designer pieces chosen for their investment potential. Sophia slides into the worn leather chair across from me, her designer purse looking dramatically out of place against the coffee-stained table that has hosted hundreds of business meetings and study sessions. She's dressed more casually than usual, though her version of casual still includes jewelry that costs more than most people's monthly rent. "This place is interesting," she says, her tone carefully neutral as she surveys the eclectic decor and diverse crowd. "Very different from anywhere I usually go." "That's exactly why I chose it," I respond with a small smile. "I wanted you to see the environment where I actually work and think, rather than some neutral meeting space that doesn't reflect either of our personalities." She nods thoughtfully, accepting a menu from the tattooed barista who approaches our table with the casual friendliness that characterizes this place. As she studies the locally sourced, organically focused options, I can see her processing this glimpse into my daily life. The past 2 weeks have been a whirlwind of family phone calls, text message conversations, and careful steps toward rebuilding relationships that were damaged by years of miscommunication and false assumptions. My parents have been researching medical artificial intelligence with the dedication of students preparing for an exam, sending me articles they've found, and asking questions that demonstrate genuine effort to understand my work. My father in particular has surprised me with his persistence in trying to grasp the technical aspects of what we do at MedTech Solutions. Yesterday, he called to discuss an article he'd read about machine learning applications in oncology, asking detailed questions about how our algorithms compare to the methods described in the research. For the first time in years, I felt like he was treating my expertise with the respect he shows his most important clients. My mother has taken a different approach, focusing on the human impact of our technology. She's been sharing stories about friends and acquaintances who have battled cancer, expressing amazement that our early detection methods might have changed their outcomes. Her emotional connection to the work feels more genuine than her previous polite inquiries about my computer activities. But it's Sophia's reaction that has been the most complex, and ultimately the most important to me. The competitive dynamic that defined our relationship for so many years didn't disappear overnight, but she's been making deliberate efforts to approach our new reality with maturity and grace. 3 days after Thanksgiving, she posted something on her Instagram that caught me completely off guard. Instead of her usual lifestyle content, she shared a thoughtful post about the importance of supporting women in STEM fields, specifically mentioning artificial intelligence applications in healthcare. She didn't name me directly or exploit our family connection for content, but the timing and focus made it clear that she was processing our revelation in a constructive way. When I called to thank her for the post, she admitted that she'd been researching medical technology companies and was genuinely impressed by what she'd learned about the industry. She'd also been reflecting on her own career and questioning whether her focus on building a personal brand had distracted her from pursuing more meaningful work. That conversation led to today's lunch meeting, where we've both committed to having the honest discussion about our relationship that should have happened years ago. "I have to start by acknowledging something that's been bothering me since Thanksgiving," Sophia says after we've ordered our food. "I've been thinking about how competitive I've been with you, and I realize it was based on completely wrong assumptions." Her directness catches me off guard. Sophia has never been comfortable with vulnerability, and her willingness to address our relationship dynamics head-on suggests a level of self-reflection that I didn't expect. "What do you mean?" I ask, genuinely curious about her perspective. "I mean that I've been treating our relationship like a zero-sum game, where your success somehow diminished mine," she explains, her voice carrying a note of embarrassment. "I was so focused on being the family success story that I couldn't see you were building something incredible right under our noses." "You've built something incredible too," I respond honestly. "Your social media presence, your marketing career, your ability to connect with people and influence their decisions, those are valuable skills that require talent and dedication." She shakes her head with a rueful smile. "Emma, I have 50,000 Instagram followers who like my outfit posts and vacation photos. You've created technology that's literally saving lives in hospitals around the world. The scale of impact isn't even comparable. But impact comes in many forms, I insist, wanting her to understand that I've never seen our achievements as competitive. Your work in marketing helps businesses reach customers who need their products and services. Your social media presence inspires people to pursue their own goals and dreams. That matters too. Our conversation is interrupted by the arrival of our food, giving us both a moment to consider how to navigate this delicate territory. The cafe's signature quinoa bowl that I've ordered reflects my practical approach to nutrition, while Sophia's carefully curated salad represents her ongoing attention to maintaining her image-focused lifestyle. As we eat, Sophia shares insights about her career that surprise me with their depth and strategic thinking. She's not just posting pretty pictures and hoping for engagement, she's building a brand with specific goals and measurable outcomes. Her partnerships with companies are carefully chosen based on alignment with her values and audience interests. I've been thinking about pivoting my content toward more meaningful topics, she admits between bites of her salad. Maybe focusing on women in business, or highlighting companies that are making positive social impact. The idea intrigues me, both for its potential to expand her influence and for what it suggests about her evolving priorities. That sounds like a natural extension of what you're already doing, I encourage. You have a platform and an engaged audience. Using that reach to promote important causes could be incredibly powerful. Would you be willing to help me understand the medical technology industry better? She asks, her tone carrying genuine curiosity, rather than the competitive edge that usually characterizes our professional discussions. I'd love to create content that highlights innovation in healthcare, and I think I could learn a lot from your perspective. Her request represents exactly the kind of collaboration I've hoped for, but never expected. The possibility of working together, leveraging our different skills and platforms to promote important causes, feels like a significant step toward rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect. I'd be happy to help, I respond enthusiastically. We could start with some basic education about how medical AI works, then highlight specific applications that are making a difference in patient outcomes. Our conversation shifts to practical discussions about content creation, audience engagement, and the responsibilities that come with having a platform that influences thousands of people. Sophia's insights about social media strategy are genuinely valuable, and I find myself taking notes about how medtech solutions might better communicate our impact to a broader audience. The collaboration possibilities extend beyond social media content. Sophia's marketing expertise could help us develop better communication strategies for explaining complex medical technology to patients and healthcare providers. Her understanding of visual storytelling could improve our presentation materials for conferences and investor meetings. As we discuss these potential partnerships, I realize that our different skill sets could be complementary rather than competitive. My technical expertise and her communication abilities could create something more powerful than either of us could achieve individually. The conversation eventually turns to our family dynamics and how they've been affected by the revelations of the past 2 weeks. Sophia admits that she's been struggling with feelings of embarrassment about how she treated me, particularly her dismissive comments about my work and lifestyle choices. I keep thinking about all the times I offered to help you network, or suggested you needed to upgrade your situation, she says, her voice carrying genuine regret. You must have wanted to scream at me. Sometimes I did, I admit with a laugh. But I also understood that you were trying to help based on the information you had. The problem wasn't your intentions. It was my failure to give you accurate information to work with. But why didn't you trust us with the truth? She asks, echoing the question that every family member has posed over the past 2 weeks. It's a fair question that deserves a thoughtful answer. I've spent considerable time reflecting on my motivations for maintaining secrecy, trying to understand whether my reasons were valid or simply convenient excuses for avoiding difficult conversations. I think it started as a protective mechanism, I explain carefully. I wanted to prove that I could build something significant without family connections or financial support. I needed to know that my success was based entirely on the merit of my work. But it became more complicated than that, I continue. The longer I kept the secret, the harder it became to reveal it, without feeling like I was fundamentally changing our relationships. I was afraid that knowing about the money would make you see me differently, either positively or negatively, in ways that weren't really about who I am as a person. Sophia considers this explanation while finishing her salad, her expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. "I can understand that fear," she says finally. "Money does change how people perceive you, and not always in good ways." "Exactly," I confirm. "I've seen how wealth affects family relationships in other people's lives. I've watched siblings become resentful, parents become demanding, and children become entitled. I wanted to avoid all of that complexity. But keeping secrets created its own complexity," Sophia points out. "It meant that all of our interactions were based on false premises. We couldn't really know each other if we didn't have accurate information about each other's lives." She's right, and her insight demonstrates a level of emotional intelligence that I've underestimated in the past. Our relationship has been built on assumptions and misconceptions that prevented genuine connection and understanding. The conversation continues as we order coffee and settle in for an extended discussion about our future as sisters and potential collaborators. Sophia shares her own struggles with maintaining authenticity while building a public persona, describing the pressure to present a perfect image that doesn't always reflect the reality of her experiences. Her honesty about the challenges of her career helps me understand that she's faced her own version of the authenticity versus perception dilemma that I've been wrestling with. While my challenge was hiding success that might complicate family relationships, hers has been maintaining genuine connections while building a brand that requires constant performance. As our conversation winds down, we make concrete plans for moving forward. Sophia will spend time at MedTech Solutions' Phoenix office, learning about our technology and meeting with our team. I'll attend one of her marketing strategy sessions, contributing technical insights to her content planning process. More importantly, we commit to maintaining the honest communication that has characterized today's conversation. We agree to address competitive feelings directly rather than letting them fester beneath the surface, and to support each other's achievements rather than viewing them as threats to our own success. Walking out of the cafe together, I'm struck by how different this feels from our typical family interactions. Instead of performing roles that we've grown accustomed to playing, we've had a genuine conversation about our real thoughts, feelings, and aspirations. The transformation isn't complete, and rebuilding trust will require ongoing effort from both of us. But today's conversation has given me hope that we can develop the kind of sisterly relationship I've always wanted but never believed was possible. Over the following weeks, the changes in our family dynamic become more pronounced and sustainable. My parents begin including questions about my work in their regular phone calls, asking about recent developments, and expressing genuine interest in the medical conferences I'm attending. My father surprises me by attending a public lecture I give at Arizona State University about the future of medical diagnostics. Seeing him in the audience, taking notes and asking thoughtful questions during the Q&A session, gives me a sense of pride and validation that no business achievement has ever provided. My mother starts volunteering with a local cancer support organization, inspired by learning about the impact that early detection can have on patient outcomes. Her involvement in this cause creates a personal connection to my work that helps her understand why I'm so passionate about the technology we're developing. Sophia follows through on her commitment to create more meaningful content, launching a series about women innovators in healthcare that garners significantly more engagement than her typical lifestyle posts. Her audience responds enthusiastically to the educational content, suggesting that her instinct to pivot toward more substantial topics was well-founded. The collaboration between Sophia and MedTech Solutions evolves into a formal partnership, with her helping us develop communication strategies for explaining our technology to patients and healthcare providers. Her skills in visual storytelling and audience engagement prove invaluable for making complex medical concepts accessible to broader audiences. 3 months after our Thanksgiving revelation, I find myself sitting in the MedTech Solutions conference room with Sophia, reviewing materials for an upcoming presentation to potential European partners. She's contributed insights about cultural communication differences and visual design principles that have significantly improved our proposal. Looking at her bent over her laptop, completely absorbed in perfecting the presentation graphics, I realize that this collaboration has given both of us something we didn't know we were missing. I've gained a family member who genuinely understands and supports my work, while she's found a way to use her skills for projects with deeper meaning and impact. The financial revelation that I feared would complicate our family relationships has ultimately simplified them by forcing us to confront the assumptions and misconceptions that were preventing genuine connection. We've learned to value each other for our actual achievements rather than our perceived failures, and to support each other's authentic goals rather than the roles we thought we should be playing. The most important lesson from this experience isn't about the value of honesty in family relationships, though that's certainly part of it. It's about the importance of defining success on your own terms and having the courage to live authentically even when that authenticity challenges other people's expectations. My decision to build a billion-dollar company while living modestly wasn't about hiding wealth or rejecting material success. It was about choosing a lifestyle that aligned with my values and priorities, regardless of what other people thought I should want or need. Sophia's decision to pivot her content toward more meaningful topics wasn't about abandoning her successful brand or rejecting the lifestyle content that built her audience. It was about evolving her platform to reflect her growing desire to make a positive impact, rather than simply generating engagement. Both of our journeys have taught us that authenticity isn't about rejecting success or avoiding material comforts. It's about making deliberate choices that reflect your genuine values, even when those choices don't match other people's expectations or definitions of achievement. As I watch Sophia present our collaborative work to a room full of medical professionals who are genuinely excited about the communication strategies we've developed together, I realize that the best outcomes often come from embracing complexity rather than trying to simplify it. Our family relationships are more complex now than they were when everyone assumed I was struggling, and Sophia was the clear success story. But that complexity has created space for genuine understanding, mutual support, and collaborative achievement that wouldn't have been possible within the simplified narrative we were all maintaining. The private jet that started this whole revelation sits in a hangar at Phoenix Sky Harbor, ready for my next international business trip. But now when I travel, I carry with me the knowledge that my family understands and supports the work that makes these trips necessary. More importantly, I carry the confidence that comes from being truly known and valued by the people who matter most to me, not despite my unconventional choices, but because of the authentic person those choices have helped me become. Success, I've learned, isn't just about building something valuable or achieving financial independence. It's about having the courage to live according to your own definition of what matters, and finding people who can see and appreciate the person you become in that pursuit. Today, as I prepare for another presentation about medical technology that could save thousands of lives, I know that my family will be cheering me on, not because of my bank account, but because they finally understand the true significance of the work itself. And that understanding, more than any business achievement or financial milestone, represents the kind of success that actually changes your life. 6 months after that transformative Thanksgiving dinner, I'm standing in the boardroom of MedTech Solutions' new Phoenix headquarters, looking out at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows that reflect the Arizona sunset. The space is modern but warm, designed to foster collaboration and innovation rather than intimidate visitors with displays of corporate wealth. The conference table is surrounded by my core team, Sophia, and surprisingly, my parents, who have asked to attend this particular meeting because it represents a milestone none of us could have anticipated. Today marks the official launch of the MedTech Foundation, a charitable organization that will fund medical research, provide grants to promising healthcare startups, and offer scholarships to students pursuing careers in medical technology. The foundation represents the convergence of everything I've learned about success, family, and the responsibility that comes with having resources to make a difference. David Rodriguez sits at the conference table with a legal pad covered in notes, his businessman's instincts fully engaged as he reviews the foundation's structure and governance plans. Over the past 6 months, he's become one of my most valuable advisors, bringing decades of financial management experience to help ensure that our charitable giving is strategic and sustainable. His transformation from concerned father offering unwanted advice to trusted business consultant has been remarkable to witness. Once he understood the scope of what MedTech Solutions had achieved, he threw himself into learning about the medical technology industry with the same dedication he's always brought to his insurance business. Last month, he attended a healthcare innovation conference with me in Boston, asking perceptive questions about market trends and regulatory challenges that impressed even our most experienced partners. His presence at the conference wasn't about family support. It was about genuine professional curiosity and a desire to contribute meaningfully to strategic discussions. Patricia Rodriguez sits beside him, her attention focused on the Foundation's educational outreach programs, rather than the financial structures that fascinate my father. She's been working with Sophia to develop communication strategies that will help us explain complex medical concepts to the general public, particularly focusing on the importance of early detection and preventative care. Her involvement in this project has revealed talents I never knew she possessed. Her background in real estate sales, which I'd always seen as superficial relationship management, actually provided her with sophisticated skills in understanding what motivates people and how to communicate complex information in accessible ways. The educational materials she's helped develop for the Foundation are clear, compelling, and emotionally resonant in ways that purely technical explanations could never achieve. Her ability to translate medical jargon into language that connects with people's real concerns about their health has become an invaluable asset to our outreach efforts. Sophia sits at the head of the table, reviewing presentation slides on her laptop with the focused intensity that has made her social media platform increasingly influential in the healthcare space. Her content about medical innovation and women in STEM has attracted attention from major healthcare organizations, leading to speaking opportunities and consulting contracts that have expanded her career beyond anything she initially imagined. The pivot in her professional focus hasn't diminished her influence. It has amplified it in ways that feel more meaningful and sustainable than her previous lifestyle-focused content. Her audience engagement rates have actually improved since she began creating educational content about medical technology, suggesting that people are hungry for substantial information presented in accessible formats. Her partnership with MedTech Solutions has evolved into something far more significant than either of us initially envisioned. She now serves as our Director of Public Communications, a role that leverages her social media expertise while allowing her to contribute to projects with genuine medical impact. Dr. Sarah Chen, my business partner and the Foundation's scientific director, projects confidence and enthusiasm as she reviews the research proposals we'll be funding in our first grant cycle. The Foundation's focus on early-stage cancer detection research feels like a natural extension of the work we've been doing at MedTech Solutions, but with the freedom to support more experimental approaches that might not have immediate commercial applications. The grant recipients we've selected represent exactly the kind of innovative thinking that could lead to breakthrough discoveries. We're funding a team at Johns Hopkins that's developing AI applications for detecting pancreatic cancer, one of the most difficult cancers to catch early. We're supporting researchers at Stanford who are exploring the use of machine learning to identify genetic markers that could predict cancer susceptibility decades before symptoms appear. Michael Thompson, who has become an unofficial family member and official legal counsel for both the company and the Foundation, reviews contracts and governance documents with the thoroughness that has made his law firm one of the most respected aviation legal practices in the Southwest. His expertise in corporate law has been invaluable in structuring the Foundation to maximize its impact while ensuring compliance with all regulatory requirements. His relationship with Sophia has strengthened considerably since our family revelation, partly because the dramatic reduction in family tension has allowed their partnership to develop without the stress of navigating complex dynamics between competing siblings. Their upcoming wedding next month promises to be a celebration of genuine love, rather than a performance of social status. The meeting begins with Dr. Chen presenting an overview of the Foundation's mission and initial projects. Her presentation is technically sophisticated but accessible, reflecting months of collaboration with Sophia and my mother to develop communication strategies that work for diverse audiences. The Foundation will fund 3 types of initiatives, Dr. Chen explains, using slides that combine Sophia's visual design expertise with my mother's understanding of audience engagement. Basic research grants for early-stage scientific exploration, applied research funding for projects that could lead to new diagnostic tools, and educational programs that help healthcare providers and patients understand emerging technologies. My father raises his hand with a question that demonstrates how thoroughly he's absorbed the complexities of medical technology funding. How do we measure success for basic research grants where commercial applications might not emerge for decades? It's an excellent question that gets to the heart of long-term thinking versus short-term results. In basic research, success might be measured by publications in peer-reviewed journals, by discoveries that enable other researchers to advance their work, or by insights that redirect entire fields of inquiry, Dr. Chen responds. We're not expecting immediate returns on investment in the traditional business sense, I add. We're planting seeds that might grow into breakthrough discoveries years or decades from now, potentially saving millions of lives through advances we can't even imagine today. The conversation continues with detailed discussions about grant evaluation criteria, reporting requirements, and oversight mechanisms. My father's questions about financial sustainability and my mother's insights about public communication create a comprehensive framework that balances scientific rigor with practical implementation. Sophia presents the Foundation's public outreach strategy, which builds on the content creation expertise she's developed over the past year. Her plan includes educational video series, social media campaigns, and partnerships with medical institutions to promote public understanding of cutting-edge diagnostic technologies. The reach we can achieve through coordinated digital communication is unprecedented, Sophia explains, showing audience engagement statistics that demonstrate the potential impact of well-designed educational content. Medical information that used to be accessible only to healthcare professionals can now reach millions of people who need to understand their options for early detection and preventative care. Her presentation includes mock-ups of educational materials that explain complex medical concepts through compelling visual storytelling. The content is scientifically accurate but emotionally engaging, designed to motivate people to take proactive steps in managing their health rather than simply overwhelming them with technical information. Michael reviews the legal structures that will govern the Foundation's operations, explaining the tax implications and regulatory requirements that will shape our decision-making processes. His presentation is thorough but accessible, reflecting his ability to translate legal complexity into practical guidance. The Foundation's board structure includes both family members and independent experts, ensuring that our decision-making process benefits from diverse perspectives while maintaining accountability to our stated mission. Michael has structured the governance to prevent any single person or interest group from dominating the Foundation's direction. As the formal presentations conclude, the conversation shifts to more personal reflections on what this Foundation represents for our family and our individual growth over the past 6 months. My father speaks first, his voice carrying emotion that surprises everyone in the room. 6 months ago, I thought I understood success and failure, he says. I thought success meant visible achievements and measurable progress according to conventional standards. Emma's revelation forced me to reconsider everything I thought I knew about value and achievement. He pauses, looking directly at me with an expression of pride and respect that I've never seen before. Creating this foundation isn't just about giving money away, he continues. It's about using success responsibly, thinking beyond immediate personal benefit to consider long-term social impact. That's a level of leadership I'm still learning to understand. His acknowledgement means more to me than any business achievement or financial milestone. For most of my adult life, I've craved his recognition of my work's value, not because I needed his approval, but because I wanted him to understand what I was trying to accomplish. My mother's response focuses on the human connections that have emerged from our family's transformation. The Foundation gives us a way to channel our different strengths toward shared goals, she observes. David's financial expertise, Emma's technical knowledge, Sophia's communication skills, my understanding of audience engagement. We've become a team in ways I never expected. Her insight captures something important about how our family dynamics have evolved. Instead of competing for attention or validation, we've found ways to collaborate that leverage our individual strengths, while pursuing objectives that matter to all of us. Sophia's reflection addresses the career transformation that began with our family revelation, but has become something much more significant than she initially anticipated. Working on projects with genuine medical impact has changed how I think about influence and responsibility, she says. Having a platform that reaches thousands of people isn't just about building a personal brand anymore. It's about using that reach to promote information and causes that could literally save lives. Her evolution from lifestyle influencer to healthcare communications specialist represents exactly the kind of authentic growth that I've always hoped success could enable. She's not abandoning her previous achievements. She's building on them to create something with deeper meaning and broader impact. Dr. Chen offers a scientist's perspective on the Foundation's potential significance within the broader medical research community. Funding innovative early-stage research has become increasingly challenging through traditional channels, she explains. Private foundations that understand both the technical requirements and the long-term vision of breakthrough research can fill critical gaps in the funding ecosystem. The foundation's commitment to supporting experimental approaches that might not have immediate commercial applications could enable discoveries that would otherwise never receive funding. We're creating space for researchers to pursue high-risk, high-reward projects that could fundamentally change how we understand and treat disease. Michael's contribution focuses on the legal and structural innovations that make this foundation different from traditional charitable organizations. The governance structure we've developed allows for both family involvement and independent oversight, ensuring that personal relationships don't compromise scientific rigor, he explains. The foundation's ability to make funding decisions quickly, without the bureaucratic delays that characterize many large charitable organizations, could prove crucial for supporting time-sensitive research opportunities. We've built flexibility into the structure that will allow us to respond rapidly to emerging needs and promising discoveries. As our formal meeting concludes, we move to the outdoor terrace that overlooks downtown Phoenix, continuing our conversation in the more relaxed setting that has become characteristic of our family interactions. The transformation from formal family gatherings focused on performance and appearances to genuine discussions about shared interests and goals has been one of the most meaningful outcomes of our revelation. The city lights beginning to twinkle in the growing darkness remind me of how much has changed since that Thanksgiving evening, when Michael's innocent question about flight manifests shattered the carefully constructed separation between my professional success and family relationships. The foundation launch represents more than charitable giving or family collaboration. It symbolizes the possibility of using success responsibly, of building something that extends beyond personal achievement to create lasting positive impact. Sophia joins me at the terrace railing, looking out at the sprawling metroplex that has become the unlikely center of a medical technology company with global reach. "Can you believe how much has changed in 6 months?" she asks, her voice carrying wonder rather than disbelief. The changes go deeper than business success or family relationships, I realize. We've all discovered capabilities and interests that we didn't know we possessed. My father's strategic thinking about charitable giving, my mother's talent for audience communication, Sophia's passion for meaningful content creation, Michael's commitment to innovative legal structures, they represent growth that extends far beyond our original family roles. My phone buzzes with a message from our London office, updating me on a partnership negotiation that could bring our diagnostic technology to hospitals throughout the United Kingdom. The message reminds me that while we're celebrating the foundation launch, MedTech Solutions continues to expand its global impact through the practical application of artificial intelligence to medical challenges. The balance between immediate business impact and long-term charitable investment feels sustainable and energizing rather than conflicting. The foundation allows us to support experimental research that might not have commercial applications for decades, while the company focuses on implementing proven technologies that can save lives today. As our family gathering winds down, we make plans for the coming weeks that reflect our new collaborative dynamic. My parents will attend the foundation's first board meeting next week, contributing their perspectives on financial sustainability and public communication strategies. Sophia will begin production on a documentary series about medical innovation, featuring researchers whose work is being funded by the foundation. The series will provide public education about cutting-edge diagnostic technologies, while highlighting the personal stories of scientists working to solve critical healthcare challenges. Michael will finalize the legal agreements for our international expansion, ensuring that our technology can be implemented in healthcare systems around the world while maintaining the highest standards for patient privacy and data security. Dr. Chen will travel to Johns Hopkins and Stanford to meet with the research teams receiving our first grants, beginning the mentorship relationships that will help ensure their projects achieve maximum impact. The coordination of these various activities represents a level of family and professional integration that I never imagined possible. We've moved beyond the competitive dynamics that previously characterized our relationships to genuine collaboration based on mutual respect and shared objectives. Driving home to my deliberately modest apartment in Tempe, I reflect on the journey that brought us to this point. The decision to keep my business success private wasn't wrong, but it created complications that ultimately forced a more complete transformation of our family relationships than simple honesty might have achieved. The revelation that shocked my family into reconsidering their assumptions about success and failure has led to discoveries about each person's capabilities and interests that might never have emerged under normal circumstances. Crisis, it turns out, can create opportunities for growth that stability might not provide. The private jet that started this entire transformation sits ready for tomorrow's flight to Washington, where I'll be testifying before a congressional subcommittee about the regulatory frameworks needed to ensure that artificial intelligence in healthcare serves patients' interests rather than corporate profits. The testimony represents another milestone in the evolution of medtech solutions, from a small startup to a company with significant influence in shaping policy around medical technology. But more importantly, it represents the opportunity to advocate for approaches that prioritize patient outcomes over short-term financial returns. As I prepare for sleep in my comfortable but unpretentious bedroom, I consider the lessons that the past 6 months have taught me about success, family, and the responsibility that comes with having resources to make a difference. True success isn't about accumulating wealth or achieving recognition, though both can be valuable tools for creating positive impact. Success is about building something meaningful that extends beyond personal benefit, whether that's developing technology that saves lives, creating content that educates and inspires people, or using financial resources to fund research that could benefit future generations. Family relationships, I've learned, thrive on honesty and mutual respect rather than performance and competition. The revelation that forced us to confront our assumptions and misconceptions has created space for authentic connections based on who we actually are, rather than the roles we thought we should play. The responsibility that comes with significant financial resources isn't just about charitable giving, though that's certainly important. It's about using success as a platform for promoting positive change, whether through business decisions that prioritize social impact, public advocacy for important causes, or personal choices that demonstrate alternative definitions of achievement and fulfillment. Tomorrow's congressional testimony will focus on ensuring that artificial intelligence in healthcare serves patients rather than profits. But the broader message extends to all applications of technology in society. The same tools that can save lives through early disease detection can also be used to exploit vulnerable populations or concentrate power in the hands of a few large corporations. The foundation we launched today represents our commitment to supporting research and education that keeps patient welfare at the center of medical technology development. But it also represents a broader philosophy about using success responsibly, thinking beyond immediate personal benefit to consider long-term social impact. As I drift off to sleep, I'm grateful for the family revelation that forced all of us to grow beyond our original assumptions and discover capabilities we didn't know we possessed. The transformation from a family divided by competitive dynamics and false assumptions to one united by shared objectives and mutual respect has been more valuable than any business achievement. The story that began with a private jet observation at Thanksgiving dinner has become a testament to the power of authenticity, the importance of defining success on your own terms, and the possibility of using achievement as a foundation for creating positive change that extends far beyond personal benefit. Success, I've learned, isn't a destination but a journey of continuous growth, authentic relationships, and increasing responsibility to contribute something meaningful to the world. The foundation launch marks not an endpoint, but a new beginning in that ongoing journey. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.